Hello, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL. Of NLL Talk, Lacrosse Talk. I'm having a real problem day today, Gary. Okay, so welcome to Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me as usual is Gary Groob, and of course we've got a really special guest all the way from God knows where, because wherever that is, it's a hell of a long distance away from where we are right now. And of course, I'm referring to Gary. Do the introduction. You like to do them.
Alrighty, we have the head coach of the Hong Kong lacrosse program, Chad Fairfoul, and Chad's had an extended career here in Canada. He joined the Lourdes University lacrosse coaching staff as an assistant coach in the fall of 2018. A native of Brantford, Ontario. You know, nice to have a little bit of Canada out in Hong Kong. He spent his summers playing minor lacrosse in Ontario, and after high school, he attended Queen's University. While playing, he also started coaching minor lacrosse and coached every level up to Junior A and Senior B lacrosse, as well as University Field Lacrosse in Canada. Garnered 4 separate Coach of the Year awards in 4 different leagues, including the OLA Junior B, Nepean Knights, OLA Junior A, Ottawa Titans, the FCQ Junior B League, Longueuil Patriots, and the Canadian University Field Lacrosse Association in Carleton. I'd say that's a pretty good resume to start with. As the head coach of Team Quebec, Fairfoul has won 2 Tier 2 gold medals and the Canadian Minor National Lacrosse Championships in 2009 and 11. And he chose a COVID time to go to Hong Kong and help them start and enhance the lacrosse programs out there. Welcome.
Yeah, Jerry, really. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks.
The first question we always ask is, what started you in lacrosse?
Well, so my growing up in Brantford, my grandfather was actually a minister in a church out in Six Nations. And so when I was born, my mom grew up with a lot of the ladies out in Six Nations. And she said, you know, by the time I was 2 years old, that this what all the boys do is they all play lacrosse. So I had to do the same thing. So my mom put me in lacrosse. I think the first year I was just turning 3. With all the little kids in what they used to call Mighty Mites. I think back in this would have been 69. Yeah. So that's how I started. And then, you know, at that age when you start, and I think I started playing ice hockey the following year. It just became lacrosse all summer and hockey all winter. And, you know, that's the way we kind of all grew up doing that sort of thing.
So what attracted you? What did you like? What made you stay?
So I have 3 older sisters. So, you know, at home, there's a lot of frustrations for a young boy. And so I think the physicality of the game is really what drew me back to it all the time. Is just being able to get any frustrations I had out on the floor from being back home. So.
That's great for when you play, but now you're a coach and you've gotten into teaching. So, I mean, it's a little less physical as a coach. At least that's what I hear nowadays anyway.
Yeah. It is actually. But there's the thing that drew me to coaching is I think it's the psychological aspect of it. You know what I mean? The ability to try to take some young men or young women at times has been and try and help them reach their potential, right? To me, that became the big challenge of coaching. And one of the things I think I enjoy the most is really trying to take an individual or a group of individuals and try and get them to reach their full potential, get the most out of them.
Yeah, it's motivation. When you're a player, you're motivating somebody to treat you with respect. And now you're motivated by teaching children to respect the game, right? Isn't that basically, it's all about respect?
Yeah. Respect is a huge part of it. I think especially such a physical game, when you're talking box lacrosse, there has to be that level of respect. You know what I mean? You have to respect your opponent. You have to respect the referees, and you have to respect the game itself, because there is a beauty in the game, and it comes from the skill level married with that massive amount of physical contact that's required in the game, that I think that you have to respect that game, and honestly, it's a gift. I see it as a gift growing up, where I was always taught that by playing the game, you're getting a gift. As you get older, you need to give that gift back. So it's what started me in coaching, and then it became a huge part of my life. Coaching.
Yeah, as an individual, it's about the micro way of doing things, and then it's the macro when you're the coach, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Gary?
Now, you had quite a bit of success. We went through all the awards. What do you attribute mostly to the success as a coach? Me personally, I think it's your personability. You're able to really get one-on-one and have an understanding with your players.
I'd love to say it was something that I did, but to be honest with you, there's a lot of luck involved. I was really lucky in the path I took in coaching. I was really around a lot of good coaches, and I think that helped me develop my own style and my own sense of coaching. And again, that was luck. That little bit of luck of me sort of bouncing around. I got a really good opportunity to coach for a while with Peter Vipond, who Viper's maybe one of the best coaches I've ever been around. When Ottawa had the NLL, I worked with them as an equipment manager, and I got to basically hang around with Johnny Meridian. The Sandersons were there. Turk was there for a while, and Lindsay. So just being around these guys, I picked up a lot of really good information. And then I think being a former player, it really helps, because you can get into the mind of the player. Right. I think that helps a lot as well. So, and I think being able to relate and connect with the players on a personal level really helps as well.
Now, you play collegiate.
I was just going to say, no, just to a follow up to that. So your relationship with the players that are there, you've got a language barrier to get over, or is that not a problem?
Not really a problem here in Hong Kong. Yeah, as you know, Hong Kong was ruled by Britain for 50 years, and or maybe longer than that. But so everyone here, I shouldn't say everyone, the vast majority of people here speak English.
So you had that opportunity to relate. You know what I was getting at, right? Because if the language maybe, but the culture you just pointed to is a little bit different.
That has been an obstacle, and still is to this day. The culture is different, and so I've really had to try to immerse myself in their culture and figure out what it is that makes them tick. And I still struggle with that on a daily basis here, because the culture is quite a bit different. The kids growing up here they're of them is demanded excellence in everything that they do. And so they expect to be able to pick up a lacrosse stick, watch something on the internet, and just do it without, and it frustrates them when they cannot do that. And I keep trying to tell them that, to build process memory, it takes repetitions, and we need to repeat this over and over again. And they struggle with that, because the school system here is a little bit of, I'll tell you how to do it, you just need to go do it. And usually they do so well, at that style of teaching, but it doesn't really work with lacrosse the same way, because it is such a, obviously manually dexterous sport. It's very, very difficult just to pick up a stick and be able to do something. So yeah, that's a big aspect here that we work on a lot, is try and teach them that we need reps.
I just wanted a wider view of the challenge. You talked about challenge. I want to make sure we inserted that you're dealing with a different culture, a different mentality. It's just basically like anywhere else in the world. You go somewhere, people do things differently everywhere. It's not
Yes.
just in Hong Kong, it's everywhere. So that challenge for you is to catch up to how they learn so that you can help them learn better. Is all because when you said challenge, I wanted people to understand the challenge that you're up against.
Yeah, and it's that's only one small aspect of the cultural difference as well. There's a lot more to it than just that, but that's one of the big ones that I've noticed since I've been here now a year and a half. So
yeah, we're only interested in the lacrosse though. We're not here to figure out the ins and outs of cultural differences. We're just here to talk about lacrosse. So we don't want anybody to misunderstand what we're talking about here. We're talking about adaptability, because essentially, and what you're pointing out, and that makes so much sense. It's muscle memory. That's all we're talking about here, right? Yeah. You're talking about muscle memory. The brain is connected to your body, but your body sometimes has to remind your brain, and your body reacts. It goes, "Oh, you said lacrosse. This is what I do. Lacrosse. I do this, right?" So that's what the brain has to. Yeah, I can imagine the challenge that you have culturally with kids that think differently, maybe than the way we do here. Not better, not worse, just differently.
So
sorry, Gary. They have an incredible work ethic here as well, which is part of the culture, and so that's a bonus, because I can give them work to do, and they really do take it to heart. So learning lacrosse, even though they have such high expectations of themselves, they really do work at it. And again, it's one of those good, bad. I'm getting it. And there's difficult things in the culture as well.
I'm getting it. The first thing I've learned now listening to you is that basically, and I don't mean this literally, I mean it figuratively. They literally tell you, okay, this is how you swim. Then they throw you in the water. Now figure it out. Yeah, that's the cultural difference. In Canada, we would be going, we go in the water with them. We'd hold their arm, right?
Yeah,
that's what you're getting at, right? Okay, good. I just want to make sure people understood that. Because it's a different way of life, which must be interesting for you, to learn something in a different way, and teach in a different way.
And that's a challenge. And then I think it's one of the reasons why I came here, is to give myself a completely different challenge outside of anything I've had before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, but one of my questions was about the discipline. NLL practice, these guys, are they more coachable than, say, North American kids?
I wouldn't say it's more coachable, but it's different. It really is different in that there's challenges, and then there's benefits to the way they grow up and their culture. So I wouldn't say they're more coachable, but finding a way to coach them, I think it's different. Yeah, it's really, really different.
What about venues? Surely there aren't lacrosse venues like there are here in Toronto, where you can go anywhere and play in the box over here, go into Clarkson and go over there. Surely there has to be challenges.
Yeah. I was joking with the guys here, saying that in Canada you can't swing a cat without finding another field or another box to go play in. Here, obviously, what's at a premium is real estate. So there really are not a lot of fields, and so something that you might not know is rugby is the number one sport here. Hong Kong Sevens is one of the largest tournaments in the world for rugby sevens. And rugby is a massive, massive sport. So of course, football or soccer is very big. Field hockey is very big here. So there's a lot of sports that rank above lacrosse in allocation for fields or box venues. There are 5 ice rinks here in the whole entire city, and they're ice all year round. They don't take the ice out ever. So there is that I know of 2 box lacrosse venues, and I'll call them that,
loosely.
Yeah, very loosely, because they're very small.
Right.
They're small. They're inline hockey venues, really. They they play 4-on-4. So they're small. So yeah, that is probably the biggest challenge here, is number 1, finding venues, number 2, getting quality competition.
Yeah, so the lack of hockey makes it difficult too, especially because the venues are the same for hockey and box lacrosse. And hockey's not that big there. I mean, even if they had basketball, you still wouldn't have the boards. That's the whole point, right? That,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I
a
mean,
specific type of venue that you need.
yeah, the Hong Kong Lacrosse Association has actually looked at trying to build our own venue. And again, the most difficult thing is finding real estate to do it, because it has to be approved by the government, and they have to approve pretty much everything that gets built, because it's literally they're building up because we don't they don't want to expand out anymore. So that's one of the biggest challenges in Hong Kong, is finding appropriate venues for us to practice.
And there'd have to be a motivation too for them to build, right? You have to go to them with a reason why. Like, for example, I'm just saying, for example, if you went to them, if your organization went to them and said the Olympics is accepting lacrosse, that would be a plus to get something, right? It's that kind of stuff, that kind of political wrangling that you have to perform, right? That your organization has to perform to get the the end that you're looking for.
100%, absolutely, and we are the Hong Kong Lacrosse Association is an observing member of the Hong Kong Sports and Olympic Committee. Mm-hmm. So right now, even though we're not a full member, we're an observing member. We hope to become a full member in the next 12 months, and that will give us a lot more leverage with the government to be able to say we need these venues if we're ever expected to make an Olympic.
That would work both. That would work both ways, because it's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Exactly. If you go to your committee, your organization, and say, if we had a rink, a place to play, we would be able to step forward in the Olympic Committee thing, right? And and if you get it, then it's easier to get. So it's like you got to get one or the other. It's the chicken or the egg. You don't know which comes first, but it'd be nice to have both.
Yes, and also here, a lot of things are allocated based on how well you do in the world, in world championships, Absolutely. In the Olympics. So they'll say, "Oh yeah, we'll give you a venue if you do well in the Olympics." Well, we can't get into the Olympics unless we have the venue. So
chicken and egg, chicken and egg.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's like. Yeah.
Now, how good, you were talking about competition to find, how good is the competition out there?
Actually, when I first got here, I didn't know what to expect. Now, I don't know if you know how much about the background of Hong Kong lacrosse. Hong Kong lacrosse started in the universities in 1963 here. And in 1993, they became a member of the FIL, which is now World Lacrosse. Mm-hmm. And it's all basically been based on TENS field lacrosse here in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. So the first head coach of the Hong Kong Lacrosse Association was Scott Browning. Well, actually, before that, it was Jordan Westpratt. I don't know if you recognize that name. He played in the NLL back in the day. So Jordan was here, and then Jordan actually works in the school system here. He couldn't really do it full time, so they brought in Scott Browning from BC, from Victoria, and Scott did a great job bringing box lacrosse here, and of course extending and their knowledge in TENS lacrosse as well. He did a great job setting me up. So when I got here, there was a little bit of box lacrosse, and I was actually surprised at the skill level here. I think, if you look at our field program, our top 10 players match up with a lot of European teams, a lot of the other Asian teams. So I was surprised at the skill level. It's the depth of the players. We just don't have enough players. So when we look at, 2019, when they went out to BC for the World Indoor Championship, those guys were all field players. Right. You know what I mean? They grew up their whole life playing field. So playing box, that's a difficult transition.
Very much.
So being their very first time at it as well, and never playing on a full-size field or full-size box, really, because we play on a smaller group. So they had a difficult transition. But I went out and watched, and I thought they did really well. I was surprised at the skill level of the players here. to compare it, I think we could probably put a mid-level senior B box team together from here. You know what I mean? If we were in Ontario, I think we would probably have a mid-level senior B box team.
That's quite good, actually.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Of course, what happens? The biggest downside is goaltending, because number one, they don't really know how to play box, goalie, but then they don't face the same level of shots, so they're not, you know what I mean, getting the opportunity to grow as fast as someone that grows up in Ontario or BC or Alberta, right?
Sure, that makes sense. Now, what is the Sixes series out there? Is that like the World Lacrosse version, or is it something different?
Yeah, so we, knowing that the IOC has accepted lacrosse as an official member now, official sport, and that we, if it ever happens that we get in the Olympics, lacrosse, that is when we say we, that it will be that Sixes version of lacrosse. We wanted to try and get a head start, so we've done some work. I know China as well is doing work in Sixes. Chinese Taipei, Taiwan, they're doing work in Sixes. Japan's doing work in Sixes. Australia's doing work in Sixes. So everyone around us is doing work in Sixes. So we need to get on board, and we've run a couple of Sixes tournaments. We have another one coming up this fall. We've done quite a bit of work in filming. Our strength and conditioning coaches here actually put some GPS on players over a series of games to track, how far they ran, this top speed, their acceleration, so that we can figure out what energy systems to start training. It's pretty scientific and not like something that we would do in Canada, or you wouldn't expect it to happen in Canada. But yeah, they take it very seriously here. And so, yes, that's what we've been doing with Sixes.
Will Sixes replace tens, do you think?
No, I don't think it will replace tens. I think it's just going to be another version of the game that will be reserved for all of those multi-sport tournaments like the World Games or the Olympics. I think tens is still going to be there'll be a World Tens Championship every year. Our universities are still going to be playing tens, although they might play Sixes as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Please define for the viewers Sixes and tens, guys.
Just amount of players on the field.
That's it. And go ahead.
Yeah, so field tens is a traditional field lacrosse where you have 10 players on the field, and traditionally you have 3 attack, 3 midfielders, and 3 pole or 4 poles, right? And then a goaltender, and then it's played on a full size soccer pitch, or football pitch as they call them here. And then Sixes is the Olympic version that World Lacrosse has come up with. It's on a much smaller version of the field. It looks a lot like box lacrosse. So you've got 5 runners and a goalie. No one is confined anywhere except the goalie. Can't cross half. And it's played with a field goaltender with a field net, so a 36 square foot 6x6 net. So it's just another version. I don't know how much you guys have seen of that, but it's really, really exciting to watch. It's super fast paced. It's really an interesting version.
I assume there's no boards.
No boards at all. Yeah, no boards at all.
Exactly. So we're back to that thing where in Hong Kong it's difficult to actually learn how to play box lacrosse.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. That's what I was trying to get. I didn't want to assume anything, so I just wanted for the viewers to give them a chance to understand. You guys use some terminology that not everybody knows. So
we had a meeting actually here the other day, meeting with my assistant coaches and the women's coaches and the executive from Hong Kong Lacrosse Association, talking about how do we start developing players for the Sixes version if we really want to make the Olympics. What do we do? And I said they have to play box from the time they're kids. We have to get a proper venue and let them play box lacrosse. They need to grow up playing box lacrosse. The confined space, the speed, the contact, those 3 things force stick skills and the ability to move your body, to not get hit full on, all those things that create a more dynamic player than if you're in the open space of a tens field lacrosse.
That's why I was asking. So basically, it's playing in a closet as opposed to playing in the kitchen.
Well, also, let alone goalies learning to get shots from anywhere and having to make saves, because field is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, every shot's from a dangerous position in box lacrosse.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and a box lacrosse goalie, you want the ball to hit you, right? You want to be that type of person that says, "I want to feel that ball hit me." And in field lacrosse, you're trying to catch the ball. Mm-hmm. Well, in the sixes version, the weird thing is that some of the best field goalies that end up being good in sixes are those guys who are really good at reacting to stuff in tight, because there's a lot of really in tight shots in the sixes version. There's not as much shooting from the outside. So I think box goalies are going to end up being better sixes goalies than traditional field style goalies. That's something to be seen. But so far what I've seen is those goalies that are really good at, just playing in tight stuff.
So that's something that you could use to sell the idea of boxes. I'm sure you've done that already, that if you want to accelerate the pace of learning how to handle the ball, A, B, how to handle the opponents, and C, as a goaltender, understand how to stop the ball because it's coming at you all the time. There's not many breaks.
Yes, exactly. And the ability for a goaltender to have a really short memory, right? Box goalies have to have that because you get so many shots, so many more shots in a box game than you do in a field game, that a lot of times the scores are higher. So you really have to mentally be different as a box goalie than a field goalie.
Yeah, it's about stopping one more.
Exactly.
It's not
give your team a chance to win, and so however many stops that takes.
So how do you go about marketing the programs there? What would you do to get more and more to come into this?
We have a staff of 14 in the office, and they really do a great job within Hong Kong of marketing to like locals. And we have quite a large expat community here. I'm not sure if there's over 300,000 Canadians living in Hong Kong. It's one of the largest expat communities in the world of Canadians. And so there are actually a lot of people out there that have played lacrosse or know lacrosse. So for us to market to that group and then to market to the kids, they're getting in the primary schools here, working with the phys ed department to bring them lacrosse. We've started our youth leagues, which again is primary school, middle school, and secondary school here. We have now youth leagues running as well as tournaments that we have for all those age groups. So when I first came here, they had already started that. And since I've got here, even through COVID, they've done some building with the school programs here that we need. I told them that, and I'm sure Scott was telling them the same thing. We need to widen the base. The more kids we have playing, the better lacrosse team you're going to have in the long run. So the staff here has done a great job. They're constantly working with other like school organizations or youth groups. They have a lot of youth groups here. And so they work with all of these groups to market to all of these kids to bring them into lacrosse. We're also doing some work. There's the China hockey group here in Hong Kong. They've got what they call the Greater Bay Ice Hockey League. So the Greater Bay area is in China's Shenzhen and Guangdong and Hong Kong. So it's the mainland that goes all the way around the Bay Area here, which is just, basically beside Hong Kong. And so we're trying to do the same sort of thing. We're trying to grow it in southern China as well, so that we have that competition. Where we said that one of the problems that we have is lack of regular competition. So if we can get that started up with the youth groups, playing regularly, and because they're ice hockey players, we're going to try and get them to play box lacrosse. So it's not a big leap for them. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. If they start playing box lacrosse, they're going to become better. You know how easy it is to go from box to field. Same thing. We can have a better 10s team. We can have a better 6s team, and we'll have a better box team.
When you were talking about the schools and about, it growing in the schools, have they given any thought to using gyms just because it's you said it yourself, real estate's the problem.
Yeah, and that's actually what they're doing right now. They do through the phys ed programs, and then also using the gyms. We just had a meeting last week to talk about how do we start putting these together, because some of the tournaments that we've been doing it on the field. Little more difficult, but right now in the primary school age, they don't wear any equipment. They use a much smaller ball. It's really about teaching them the
ball handling.
The ability to pick up the ball off the surface, to be able to move the ball quickly. So we're trying to get them to use the sticks to hook them on the game. It's with the youth, we're really trying to make it as fun as possible. It's just all about fun.
Yeah, I could picture 3 kids playing against 3 kids in the gym. That's what I could picture.
Yeah, and that's exactly. Sometimes if it's out on a field, we delineate the field quite a bit smaller, much like a gym, and have them play 4-on-4, or if it's in a smaller area, 3-on-3. So you're absolutely right. A little bit like Casey Powell's speed lacrosse.
Throughout all of Asia, though, that it's really picked up now too. Asia Pacific Lacrosse Union doing great things. Let's talk a little bit.
So we are part of. If you look at World Lacrosse right now has what they call continental federations, and there's 4 of them right now. If you look at the way the IOC does it, Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, and Tonga, and all of the areas there, and then Asia, they're separated. But because Oceania here in lacrosse really only has 2, New Zealand and Australia. None of the other countries that play, rugby in the Olympics play lacrosse yet. So that's why it's called the Asian Pacific Lacrosse Union, because really those 2 continental federations for the IOC are together here, and they do a great job. They've done a lot. They've reaching out to Indonesia, Malaysia. I think, let me see, they just the other day we were talking about Cambodia is starting. Philippines has played in the last World in Israel in 2018. They had a great showing. A lot of Philippine Americans play, but they're trying to get it set up in the Philippines, before COVID happened. Of course, that kind of blew everything up with a lot of stuff. But yeah, so all of Asia right now, Korea is strong. Chinese Taipei, Taiwan is getting stronger. China is actually getting stronger. Then there's Hong Kong. You've got the Philippines, Thailand, Singapore. All have teams here, and of course Japan is I think 6th in the world right now. And then you've got Australia, who was 4th, and New Zealand. I think they were 12th or something. They're up there, or they're pretty high as well. Maybe they're 20th. But so there is good competition here. Right. It just requires travel for us.
Sure.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of distance between the places you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not like North America.
Yeah. So Japan is actually pretty easy for us to get to. But because their national team is spread out, and we're in one city, we're in basically Hong Kong is a city. Right. It's easy for us to get together and practice all the time, but Japan's players are spread out, Okinawa, Kashima, they're all over Tokyo, they're all over the place. So it's a little more difficult for them to get together just for a game, or, it's got to be an event that we set up. So it's a little more difficult for us to just, hop on a plane and go play Japan, which would be great because, that's the type of competition. It's a competition that we need really to get better, is to play over our heads.
I wonder with what you're talking about here and what we're hearing, it's like you talk about COVID and about Canadian professional teams playing in the United States and being their home base because they couldn't come to Canada. I'm seeing something in my head here, just run this by you. So if you were to play box lacrosse, Japan plays hockey internationally. They have a lot of hockey rinks. So they must play a little more box lacrosse than you guys do. Have you given any thought to playing more against them and working out a box lacrosse schedule to play with them if they do that back there in Japan?
We have actually. They're actually not as big in box lacrosse as I thought they would be. They, because all of their universities, they have a very extensive university league there. And they have actually a pretty big corporate league as well, where corporations have their own lacrosse teams that of guys graduating out of university and working for the corporation and playing. So they've got, but those are all tens. They grow up playing tens lacrosse. They don't grow up playing box. All their youth is tens. So they've dabbled in box lacrosse. They've done it in gyms, and they've I don't know how many venues they have there. Believe it or not, China has more venues than anyone. They have a lot of like indoor box lacrosse facilities. Taiwan has one as well, and then they're dabbling in box as well. So it's starting. It's starting, and I've reached out to all of these and saying, hey, you want to start playing a little more box lacrosse against each other? It comes back to, I think that if we can get the youth doing it, more than, the adults that we have already now playing box with them is great, but we need the youth to play right when they start, so that they, just like our kids growing up in Canada, they grow up with that, learning that avenue. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. That's something that we're looking at, is how do we create more regular competition outside of Hong Kong?
Yeah, it's not just about the chicken and the egg. It's also the cycle. Like, you want to get that cycle going, right? That cycle where you automatically, children start, and now they got a place to go and they stay in the game. And because they stay in the game, the next generation moves in. Because one thing Gary and I have learned about lacrosse, it passes through generations. It's generational. Children of lacrosse players play lacrosse. It happens a lot. Right.
Absolutely. The Masters tournament that we had on the weekend, it was believe it or not, it was a Masters sixes tournament, and watching sixes is exciting. Playing it as a Masters is not so exciting, because there's a lot of running. There's no more of this. You know how they say give and go when you play Masters? It's like give and watch.
Give and stop.
Yeah.
Give and stop.
Yeah, exactly. You can't really do that in sixes. You have to move your feet all the time. But the kids were everywhere. And exactly what you're saying, these were kids of these former players from Hong Kong Lacrosse Association. So it was really, really good to see that second generation of those kids all out there playing lacrosse and having fun doing it, which is, I think, the biggest thing for the kids. You hook them for life if they have fun.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the goal, is really to let them get out there and just have fun, and then they want to play. You can't make them play for you. You have to get them to want to play for you. So
I remember when I was young, the way I got hooked to sports was the first time I played was the experience I have, the first time playing, which means you and your organization have a big responsibility to make sure that that first time is a successful one, is one that's a positive experience for young children.
Absolutely. I agree with 100%. And there's something else. I remember talking with Johnny Meridian one time about the sport of lacrosse and how it's different than every other sport, because you're manipulating an object through 3 dimensions, like 3D space, and the ability to catch that ball for the first time. You see that look in the kid's eye, like, I can do this, right? And the first time they throw the ball, they have that same look, right? That's the sort of, you have to celebrate that, and then that's what gives the kids that really good experience, that fun that they find in the ability to do something which is not a natural thing to do at all.
Now, fast forwarding a little bit. Any of the upcoming World Games, will you be playing in them? And what's entailed to get into these things and to be accepted in these things?
So with COVID, the World Field Lacrosse Championship has been pushed back to 2023. Right. We have to qualify because the World Lacrosse, with 75 members now, these world lacrosse championships could be massive, and who could host, the last one had 46 teams in men's, right? And so it's absolutely ridiculous at this point to think that there's going to be 75 teams. So they've capped it at 30 teams for LA in 2023. So we have to qualify, which means we'll play in an APLU tournament. I think the top 12 teams are pre-qualified. So that would be Australia and Japan are already pre-qualified. And then it would be a tournament with, I think there's 6 teams. And I think totally we have 6 more spots for men. So, 4 more spots. We have 6 in total. So 4 of the 6 teams would qualify. And that would be, I think, Chinese Taipei, China, Hong Kong, let me see who else, Philippines, Korea, New Zealand would be the 6 teams. And 4 of those teams would qualify in the top 30.
Right.
So that's how we would get to the men's. So the women's they've capped it at 30, and I'm not sure they have a full 30. So our women's are next year are going to be in Baltimore, and our U21 men's will be in Ireland next year as well in 2022. There is no qualification for that, but for men's, because there's just so many men's teams now, they had to set up a qualifying round basically.
Okay, so I gotta ask this. Why Hong Kong? You're successful here. You had a lot of championships. You're doing great. I'm going to Hong Kong. What brought you to this? And during COVID is when you decided to uproot and away you went.
Yeah. It's so I was coaching in the US at Lord's in Sylvania, Ohio, just outside Toledo. And I was also coaching, and of course I'm sure you've talked about this, the IBLA, who was started up by a former player from Vermont. When I coached Senior B in Vermont, he had come over and played with our U21 team. And so he started this IBLA, and there was a team out of Columbus, Ohio. And so the guys that I knew from that team had asked me to come down and coach. It's a 2-hour drive. So I was driving back and forth from Toledo to Columbus and coaching these guys in Columbus. So one of the guys who was playing for the Columbus team just reached out to me on Facebook one day and said, "Do you happen to know anybody from Hong Kong?" Because his father was from Hong Kong and he wanted to play for the Hong Kong team in 2019 in BC. And I said, "It's strange that you ask, because somebody from Hong Kong had connected with me on Facebook only a month or 2 earlier." And so I reached out to the person who had connected to me and said, "Do you know anyone from the Hong Kong Lacrosse Association?" Well, it turned out to be Raymond Fong, who is the CEO of Hong Kong Lacrosse Association. And so he said, "Absolutely, I am the person to talk to." So that's how I connected with Raymond. And Alex, the player, ended up playing in 2019 out in BC.
Okay.
And Raymond reached out to me a few months later and said, "Would you happen to know anybody that would be interested in moving to Hong Kong and coaching?" And I said, "Yeah, I know some guys that are out there looking for jobs. Send me the information, and and I'll forward it to them." So he sent me the information, and as a joke, I sent it to my wife, and I said, "Hey, you want to move to Hong Kong?" And she said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Wait, what?" She said, "Yeah, if you want to apply for that job." And it's completely as a joke. I said, "You want to do it?" And so I started looking deeper at the information and the program, and knowing that Scott Browning had been here for a while, I knew I was going to be coming in on a good base. And then I started talking with Raymond a little bit more about it. And the more and more I talked to my wife about it, I thought, this is a really great opportunity, especially for this time of my life. There's a challenge. I have the freedom to move. At least I thought I did, because this all happened before COVID even existed. Right. At least we knew it existed. So, I ended up going out to BC and meeting with Raymond, spent a couple of days with him, watching and talking, and eventually I was offered the position, and I accepted it. And the strange part is that I was supposed to be here in January, and they said, don't come. This COVID thing has kind of blown up here, so don't come. We'll get you to come once it, calms down, thinking it would be a quick thing. And and so then our plan was Scott was going to stay here for the rest of the year, and we were going to work together in a little bit of a transition phase between the two head coaches. And so they said, no, don't come. And then there's a chance you could come maybe in March. So let's plan for March. So they got the ticket and everything we were all planning. About a week and a half before, I hadn't even packed yet. And they said, no, you can't come. It's just blowing up again.
Right.
And then on Thursday night, he called me and he said, hey, we still have your ticket. Can you fly out on Sunday? And so I went, okay. And so I said to my wife, it's go time. And so we just went crazy and packed everything. And I came on Sunday. I flew in, and as I was getting my passport stamped and my visa, the guy said, I landed at 5 p.m. And as I'm going through custom, he said, it's a good thing you came because we're closing the border in 5 hours.
Wow.
And so I wouldn't have been able to get in. But then I was stuck here. I couldn't travel back to Canada. Oh boy. In 14 months, I think I went back for last Christmas. I was back for a month at Christmas. And then so in 14 months, I think I saw my wife for a total of 30 days or 28 days, something like that.
Wait a minute. I thought when you sent her that you both were going to go.
Yeah. So in the transition, the whole plan was I was going to come because I didn't know the city at all. I wanted to make sure, that culturally I could fit in, everything was going to work out. And then I was actually staying in a hotel for the first couple of months. Then I got an apartment, and so doing all that stuff in the apartments is another different thing. It's literally like living in a shoebox. Everything is so much. My apartment is about the same size as my master bedroom at home. So
a little bit of a culture change, yeah.
Yeah, and so we wanted to work all that stuff out, and then she was supposed to come in the summer. Well, because of COVID, there was none of that. She wasn't that just wasn't happening. So we ended up getting separated for the longest time. So she's actually here now. She came here. Her brother's getting married in the middle of September. So she's flying back for the wedding, and then she'll have to come back and do all of her quarantine all over again. And COVID. Yeah.
Now, I actually want to go back to an event because you did a lot of sponsorship with NLL and things like that. And I want to go to one specific thing. It was a 2012 exhibition game between Toronto and Rochester and Montreal.
Yes.
And it was a success. You had a lot of people there. And I've always said that Montreal will be a great home. And probably if you get Montreal, you'll get Quebec City and all the rest of that, just to add on to the NLL wagon there. But you and Jamie Badley came up with a great idea. It's kind of like, here's the event of your life. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So Bats I was working with a group that was in contact with the Molsons, and Bats was also working with the group as well. And the concept was, if we could run an exhibition game and show that we could get the numbers of fans, that it would pique the interest, right, of the Molsons and that group. And that runs their ticketing agency and everything, so that the concept was to try and have them see that this potential for an NLL franchise is there. Mm-hmm. And it was a success. We had, I think there were 7,800. Yep. I'm not sure what the official number was, but it's right around 7,800 that was there. I think it was a success. I just don't think the timing was right yet for them. And to speak about Quebec City, you're 100% right. Once Montreal gets something, Quebec City is like that little brother that wants it too.
That's what I've said too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's 100% that they always are battling with Montreal to have everything that Montreal has. So I think you're right. It could, and it would blow up in Quebec City as well. I think it would blow up in both of those. But you really have to you've got to get someone like the Molsons on board. You know what I mean? You really have to.
Yeah, well, the commissioner now he's strictly with blue chip, as you've probably heard now that we have Gretzky and all these guys, Joe Tsai, all big proponents of the league. So I'm sure that's who they would be going after if they're going into Montreal eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see any other way. They've got the new venue in Laval that seats 10,000, which would be perfect. Perfect to start out in if that's what they wanted to do.
But you also gave guys a chance of a lifetime, because you guys held a combine in which the best players were going to play in that game with the pros. Well,
yeah. So we had
drive interest, right?
Yeah, we had two of them. Jean-Guy Touin played for Rochester. He's a local product, came through the Quebec minor organization, youth organization, and also played on Team Quebec at nationals. And then also Trevor Wagar, who was coaching for Team Quebec at the time, tried out. Wagar is out of Guelph, Ontario. He actually got drafted by San Jose back in the day. Played at Vermont Division One, and so Wags ended up playing for the Rock during that. So it was. I think the combine was really good because the players got to see the level that they needed to be at. Which and now you've got a couple of kids out of Quebec that are playing in the NLL. You got one in Philly, Stéphane Charbonneau.
Yep.
There's. I think it really sparked the interest in lacrosse in Quebec and really helped the growth.
Back to your Hong Kong thing. We don't want to stay too long on Quebec. In Hong Kong, help us to understand what the next step is specifically that you feel that's most important to generate the kind of interest and maybe get a home for box lacrosse there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like I've said before, is to start the kids playing box lacrosse and to get as much. And that's one thing that Hong Kong Lacrosse Association and the staff here, they do such a good job with the marketing of the game in Hong Kong, that I think once people start to see box lacrosse and the excitement that it generates, I think that's where you're going to start to see it blow up in Hong Kong and really explode. And kids will start wanting to play it because, I mean, it is such an exciting game to watch. And of course, as a guy who grew up playing box and not playing field until I was 17, I love playing it. And I think these kids will too. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's one thing that we do really, really well here. I don't really have anything to do with it, but the staff here, the marketing, and the biggest thing is getting a venue. Right? Yeah. We need to have a venue that's an actual box lacrosse venue. Get the kids playing it, market it, and then start reaching out. And we have our own Hong Kong Open, which is a 10s event. Creating a Hong Kong Open for box, I think, would be the sort of progression of what we do to really.
For those of us that have the opportunity to see all the different versions of lacrosse that take place, we know that the most entertaining, I think, is box lacrosse. It is the one that more people will buy tickets to go see. And while they're doing that, the interest of the game is heightened as well. So it's a shortcut to adding interest. That's why I'm asking about what. So it sounds like it'd be great if box lacrosse would do great things for lacrosse, period.
Absolutely. I think it's really one of the things, especially if with sixes is going to be big. I think box lacrosse is really the venue that we have to go after.
Yeah, I think we have to have you on again because Gary still has 40 questions he needs to ask.
Yeah, I'm more than happy. More than happy anytime. There's still a lot of the story to be told. I tell you, Hong Kong is just a wonderful place. The people are fantastic here. I'm actually really happy here, and my wife has to go back for her, like I said, her brother's wedding, and she's kind of saying, I don't really want to go home.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Eh? Yeah. Thank you for taking the time with us.
No, thank you for having me
there. So yeah.
Yeah, no, you're obviously someone who really loves the game, And your wife loves to travel. I don't think there's a man in this world who asks his wife the question, "Would you like to travel, honey?" and not know what the answer is before he asks.
Yeah, yeah,
Eh?
yeah.
Eh? And they're going to pay us to travel, dear.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I'm there.
Yeah, and she's lucky that her job is a lot of her job is online, so that she can practically do it for anywhere in the world.
Fantastic.
That's why I said I was in the right situation at the right time.
Yeah. Well, there are some things that the pandemic has done. That there is some silver lining here and there. Not much.
Yes,
it's been mostly pain, but there's been some silver lining. That doesn't take away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Chad, like Gary said, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you.
Gary, as usual, great job. Love talking lacrosse, and we ran into somebody else that gives a different perspective.
Oh, it's terrific, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. So for Chad Fairfoul and Gary Groob, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Lacrosse Talk. Seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, apparently some other weird time in Hong Kong. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember to take your lacrosse stick out from the closet.